Hi, my name is Amanda Terry. I'm co-founder and managing partner of ACTAI Ventures. We're an early stage fund investing in purpose-driven technology companies. And I am so excited today to have Shahrooz Chowdhury, who is CEO and co-founder of Liven. You're frequently between Melbourne and the Bay Area, and I'm really glad we get the opportunity to catch up here in the Valley.
Thanks for having me. I think I'm probably always on a plane somewhere, so it's good to actually be in the part of the world where I can meet up with folks. And the Bay Area seems to be somewhere I get stuck in every 3 or 4 times a year.
Yeah, or I see you at a lot of these ACTAI global events, so I feel I actually get to see you quite a bit in person. But yeah, I'm glad we got to catch up today.
We still haven't got you out into Australia yet, so that's the.
Yeah. I went not last year, but 2 years ago. I did the West Tech Fest.
Yeah.
But I don't think I saw you there. I dedefinitely saw Grace at that one, but I don't know.
No,
where
I
you
was
were.
in the Bay Area. I was with Bill here.
You were in the Bay Area. Okay, that's right. Okay. Well, first of all, why don't you tell us just in a few words what Liven is, and then we'll kind of get into the founding story. The goal of these are really just to give an opportunity for some of our awesome entrepreneurs to tell a little bit about their story and what they're excited about with the company. But for anyone who doesn't know what Liven is, why don't you give just a couple sentences on that?
Awesome. Well, we're a full stack hospitality platform. What that means is we help our restaurants, hotels, activity centers, supermarkets, groceries, you name it, shopping malls, help them build and manage their businesses in a way that they've never been able to before. So by full stack, I mean we help them with everything from the point of sale through to their supply chain or down to their payments or their loyalty or the data systems. We give them an entire operating system that kind of takes their back of house operations and their front of house growth and puts it together.
Amazing. That's a good description of what you guys are doing. Tell us a little bit about the founding story of Liven, and what did you do before Liven?
I think we all had a very interesting journey to get here. My co-founders, brother and sister team, they were both ex-lawyers, so they had every part of the journey from helping form restaurants, how do they manage their lease agreements, how do they manage their franchisee agreements, how they scale and get into 1,000-unit restaurants. So they had a very interesting perspective. I, on the other hand, had the opposite side of the table. I actually helped build a restaurant company. I spent many years at Australia's fastest growing restaurant company, GYG, and in that process learned a ton around what was working in the industry and from a technology perspective, what wasn't. And so that formed a lot of my thesis around what really the hospitality operators around the world needed. And before that, I was in vertical SaaS and marketplaces. So I was fortunate enough to bring a lot of these experiences together. And in that journey, I kind of got to a point where I knew exactly what I wanted to build. And having tested and built out a lot of the technology behind GYG, I recognized that the world has a massive need to have these kind of shared platforms. Like at that time, I wished a company like Liven had existed, because I would have used it in a heartbeat. But there wasn't anyone helping restaurant operators really deal with the complexities of all of these disparate SaaS tools, because the average restaurant probably has 20 to 30 SaaS tools. I just spoke to a big fast food restaurant that said they had 140 tools.
Oh my gosh,
so
that's a lot.
I can only imagine a franchisee going, okay, so I thought I was here to build an amazing food product and guest experience, and instead they're wrangling tech. And that's not why anyone got into the industry. And I was very fortunate in past roles I was able to build with a massive team. So I thought, what if we could effectively do that entire build together and then allow everyone to get access to that without having everyone go out and do their own CapEx and try to do that innovation. So that helped me form that thesis. I got calls from everyone saying, cool, can you build me something that can solve X, Y, Z? And at the same time, I met with Will and Grace, and Will at one stage said, can we just catch up for half an hour? I want to pick your brain on something we want to do. And then that half an hour conversation turned to 9 hours.
Wow.
And then we realized we actually want to build and solve the same problems. In my view, hospitality is probably the toughest industry to get right. It's got the hardest working people, and they've been completely disenfranchised by the way that the world of tech has more or less taken over their day-to-day. So, 9 hours in, we realized we had the same mission, the same vision, the same values, and we really need to build this thing together. So that made a ton of sense, and the rest is history.
Amazing. What a cool story. Now, were you also in product in your previous roles before Liven 2, kind of building things?
Engineering product, yeah. So we had a lot of fun in my last role. We did the world's first commercial drone delivery program. We did the world's first integration to Uber Eats because I had built this middleware layer that allows effectively the rest of the world to deal with a restaurant. And what I realized is the actual restaurant point of sales are very old, very antiquated, and they don't like integrating to things. So on my journey, I was thinking through, how do we flip that? How do we fix that and turn that into a point of strength? And then sort of as the product evolved, we finally got to do that in a really meaningful way.
Very cool. And talk to me a little bit, how has the company evolved the past few years, and how has the product evolved?
Yeah. Companies evolved a ton. I think when we went from like 10 to 20 people and now we're at 200, I think we had to get used to a lot of change, like really fast. I think we did a lot of things right. We did a lot of things wrong. But I think any company that has to go and 10x and then 10x again, has to basically live and die by the process we made and didn't make. So the company's had to evolve a ton. We now have team members all over the world. We thankfully got into asynchronous and kind of a really focused way of building things that happened before COVID. So when COVID happened, we can kind of go, great, this is our day-to-day. We know how to work without having to be in the same room, without having to be having the water cooler moments. But in that, couple of years' time, when we grew another 10x, we really stretched ourselves in terms of what we believe we could have, not just achieve, but also maintain and then grow from since then. As a product, we've evolved a ton. I think the original thesis was to figure out, if we're going to be really helping restaurant owners take the complexity away from their day-to-day operations, we're going to have to be meaningfully adding value. And then we've got to decide where along their entire world do we start. And we decided on loyalty and ledger because the ledger that actually surrounds a loyalty platform completely decides what it can do and what it can't do. And one of the hardest things to get right, we felt, was that. So we built out our custom ledger that allows us to create these currencies of interest, allowing individual restaurants to launch their own community-funded currency and issue rewards in that, and really change the way that they have a relationship with their customers, and change the way that their customers expect that brand to be available at every touch point. Now, we focus on that, and when we did that really well, we said at the next stage, we're going to work through the entire supply chain. So eventually we said we're going to either partner, we're going to buy, or we're going to build everything. So, and to this day, we still stay very agnostic, but now the product set is quite mature. So we have, as I said, the supply chain, so helping the whole procure to pay cycle, so helping restaurants and helping sort of wholesalers and distributors manage all the inventory and help it get to the right restaurants, letting the restaurants have some smarts around what they actually order, how frequently they order it, and how do they reduce their food waste. How do they have a three-way dynamic match between, the goods received notice as well as the accounts payable and the invoice, and just making sure that we're in a really good spot to say, well, what if you could decrease your, accounts payable and receivable headcount, and say, well, what if those team members could be used to do something far more effective? So we're always thinking about how do we take the manual labor and the physical paper that somehow managed to add up in a restaurant business, and so just make things fully digitized and make things a lot smarter. And that data then flows into our point of sale. So we offer a point of sale as well. That point of sale can take all of those ingredients and be really smart around how it actually manages the kitchen, how it manages the prep stations, and again, how it can distribute this rewards dollars via the point of sale, via the kiosk, via the online ordering or whatever it might be. From there, it goes down to the actual ordering experience, whether it be table ordering, delivery, whether it be the ability to have hotel room bookings or catering, all of that we provide. We even provide like white label tools for restaurants to actually own the delivery experience themselves. Then we get into loyalty, we get into order marketing automation, communications, we get into the world of data and how do we help them manage and actually own their own data, monetize it. And so there's a ton of other things that we do, but it all started with initially saying, how do we just do this community currency incredibly well? So we can take a restaurant, let them own that relationship, and then go from there.
That's what we always talk about. ACTAI Ventures trying to use digitization to make industries more efficient and processes more scalable and replicable. And it seems like across kind of the whole restaurant hospitality chain, you are doing that in like so many different areas. It's really
Yeah,
cool.
because if you look at someone like Starbucks, they've done a fantastic job. You know, they sit on like probably $1.7 billion worth of, you know, capital that customers effectively said, I will buy the brand of Starbucks so you guys can distribute the coffee later. And if you asked any hospitality operator, like, hey, would you like to have the Starbucks stack? Of course they'd say yes, but why is it that no one else can do that? So what we've done is effectively solve that end to end and say, look, you can have the same superpowers, but no, you don't have to have hundreds of developers or don't have to have a entire tech team. It's just there for you and you can turn it on and start it from day one.
And what are you most excited about today on the product side at Liven and kind of what you're doing from a go-to-market perspective?
Yeah, I think I'll start with the go-to-market one first because we're doing a lot of focus on Southeast Asia. So we've got over 1,000 customers in Singapore right now.
Wow.
We've got a huge push into Indonesia. We've got some great partners over there. We already had a beachhead in Bali and now Jakarta, and now we're growing our team size there quite substantially. But the opportunity is massive. I think all across Southeast Asia, we're seeing a very sometimes quite a mature narrative and sometimes immature narrative, but there's so much potential because they've got 700 million people in high density with a lot of them, relying on QR code based payment. They don't have perfect access to banking. It's not a heavily card orientated world, except like Singapore is massively, but like the rest of Southeast Asia, not so much. And we're finding that, the products that we've built for the last 8 years are like just generations ahead of what's available in the local market. So in terms of being a strong regional player, it makes a lot of sense. And also means we can get into the shopping malls of the world, which has already helped us grow in Australia, but we can apply that through Asia, which has a massive mall culture. So we can get into and support restaurants and retailers from top down and bottom up. And getting back to the product side, for us, the whole rationale why we said we want to be in all of these different areas is because we wanted to help build and own all of the workflows. So that if we had to meaningfully help restaurants become autonomous, because that was the vision, how could we possibly do that if we had a massive black hole in one side of the business? So we said, okay, now that we have all of these independent businesses and we've merged them all together, the opportunity is to say, well, at the intersections, there's some really interesting white space that no one's ever built products around. Because to do so, you'd have to actually own the supply chain and own the point of sale. And we're fortunate enough to be in that position, so we can build experiences that no one's had before. And we also have access to all the data, so we can help the restaurant leverage their supply chain data and their point of sale data and actually pair it up with their ordering and their merchandising data and their loyalty data. And so we can build AI products in a way that no one else has ever thought before. And for us, that's really exciting because we can change the way that, I guess, hospitality has been thought about and driven and the unit economics of that, for decades. And now is the time to do it.
That is so exciting. I love it. And how many restaurants are you in Australia? Kind of, that's your main market, right?
Yeah, well over 5,000.
Over 5,000? Wow. Yeah. You guys are just 10x, you said, growth and expanding so quickly across Southeast Asia, Australia. It's really exciting. And exciting to get your investor updates because you guys are doing a great job. What advice would you have for any aspiring entrepreneurs, be it U.S. or Australians trying to come here? I don't know if that'd be different advice or what advice do you have for anyone listening?
Oh, I think the cultural differences between the U.S. and Australians, that's a whole video in itself.
Okay.
I think in general, if you're an early stage startup founder, I think the whole industry will conspire to get you to think about the right now. And it can often lead to being very myopic. At the end of the day, everyone's going to also, think that the buck stops with you, which it does when it comes to long-term vision. So, despite everyone talking about next quarter, if you don't have a plan for how you think it might evolve over the next 3 quarters, 5 quarters, let's say 2 years out in this current stage of AI, you probably can't get much further than that, but you still need to have a directional plan and you need to be able to tell your team, this is how we're going to work backwards. And I think often that direction helps align things so much better. Even when you're not in the room, you can trust that everyone's still moving in the same way. So I find that incredibly useful. And in general, I think most entrepreneurs will be incredibly impatient. And I think that's where patience is a superpower in some respects. You know, things will never move as fast as you want it to, but also recognizing that, you know, if you take a second, you breathe, and you understand why, and you get really curious, you might figure out exactly how to get that speed to the speed that you're wanting. But in general, I feel like not just myself, but a lot of entrepreneurs, you know, are always, you know, sometimes they're cautiously optimistic, sometimes they're entirely embarrassed, whatever it might be on that spectrum. But they want their results to be way better than it is. And, you know, just funnel that into like an intense level of curiosity, like break down your machine, build it back up again, break it down, build it back up again. And before you know it, you've evolved your business. And hopefully if you've evolved your thinking along the way, then you deserve to continue leading it into the next chapter.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time. I'm so appreciative. It's been wonderful, like kind of following Liven's journey, and I'm excited for what's next. You guys are doing awesome. So thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for backing us.
Thanks.
Cheers.